Good morning, everyone. It's March 10th at 11:01 a.m. and this begins the work session of the Lake County Board of County Commissioners. 3 items on the agenda. The first is overview and discussion regarding the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation's forecasts and operational plans for Turquoise and Twin Lakes for the spring/summer of 2026. Led by Michael Holmberg, Facility Manager, Pueblo Dam Field Office, and USVOR. Welcome.
I think Michael's online.
Michael?
Yeah, morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Sure can. Thank you.
Okay, so I've got a kind of a brief presentation here. It looks like 10 slides. I'll give a little bit of background on what the Frying Pan Arkansas project is, how it relates to Lake County, and then just kind of give you an overview of what we expect for the year. So we have a good neighbor agreement with Lake County, mainly regarding flows on Lake Fork Creek, where we will do our best to try to keep flows below 400 CFS on the release out of Turquoise Lake down Lake Fork Creek. And then part of that agreement is to have like a pre-runoff meeting with Lake County and make sure that we're all on the same page and everybody's communicating. With me here, I've got Ana Perea. She is our public relations specialist. So if you guys ever have any questions, need information, please don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us, and we can answer your questions to the best we can. So I will share my screen here. Oh, host has disabled screen sharing. Is there a way to get that ability? If not, I can talk without it, and I can just put some pictures in the chat here.
1 second, we'll get you set up here.
Well, can I do it just from his buttons? Let's see. Co-host.
There you go.
Confirm. All right, now you should be able to share.
Okay, let's see.
There we go.
All right, are you seeing a PowerPoint now?
Sure are.
Okay. All right, so like I said, my name is Mike Holmberg. I'm the facility manager here at Pueblo Dam and Field Office. So our office, we manage the Frying Pan Arkansas project. So it's a multi-use project where we have about 16 diversion points on the Frying Pan and Roaring Fork rivers over above Basalt and Aspen. We divert water throughout the spring runoff. We take that water into the Boosted Tunnel, which discharges it directly into Turquoise. From there, we can move water to Twin Lakes via the Mount Elbert conduit, use the Mount Elbert power plant to generate power, and then we release it out of Twin Lakes and store that water down in Pueblo. So briefly, I'll go over some of the infrastructure we have there, just so you can kind of get an idea of what the interest is with the Bureau of Reclamation and how we intersect with Lake County. So first we have the Charles H. Boosted Tunnel. It's a 5-mile long tunnel constructed beginning in 1966. That's where we bring our water under the Continental Divide. We can bring in 945 CFS if it's at full capacity. And like I said, that outflow is directly into Turquoise Lake. We have Turquoise Lake and Sugarloaf Dam. The Bureau of Reclamation purchased Turquoise from CF&I Steel Corporation and enlarged it between 1965 and 1968. We have an active storage of about 129,000 acre feet. Water is stored for municipal, industrial, irrigation, recreation, fish and wildlife. The main people that can store water in there is, of course, the Bureau of Reclamation. We store our project water. Whenever I talk about the water that we bring from the West Slope, we refer to that as project water. We store that there. Colorado Springs, the city of Aurora, and Pueblo Board of Waterworks all have fixed storage space in Turquoise Lake. So we're all kind of competing for, not really competing, but we all have space in the same reservoir. Moving on down to Twin Lakes, the Bureau purchased Twin Lakes from the Twin Lakes Reservoir and Canal Company and started enlarging that reservoir in 1978. We have 140,000 acre feet of active storage. Again, multi-use reservoir, can be stored for a variety of reasons. The two entities that store water in Twin Lakes is Bureau of Reclamation and then the Twin Lakes Canal Company. And that's made up of a lot of different entities, both agricultural, municipal. I'm not sure who all stores water in their accounts, but it's pretty varied. There at Twin Lakes, we have the Mount Elbert Power Plant. That's an important feature, not only for power generation, but it's also serves as kind of a bottleneck for how we move water. So like a couple of years ago when we had those higher flows on Lake Fort Creek, the Mount Elbert Power Plant was down. Both of its units were unavailable, which means we have to use the natural channel of Lake Fort Creek out of Turquoise to release water. Under normal circumstances, we can take the majority of that water through a conduit directly from Turquoise through the power plant to Twin, and thus avoiding any kind of high flows on there. I'll talk about Mount Elbert a little bit more in their current status here in a little bit. So we have multiple trans-mountain diversions that all are part of the Arkansas River Basin. These are the largest ones. We, of course, have the Fry Arc project where we bring water in through the Boosted Tunnel. On average, it's about 56,000 acre feet, and I'll have some more numbers here in a minute. The Homestake Tunnel, which is owned by Colorado Springs and Aurora, is another large one, on average about 24,000 acre feet. The Busk Ivanhoe Tunnel takes water from Ivanhoe Lake up above the town of Basalt. That's jointly owned by Pueblo Board of Waterworks and Aurora Water. They bring in about 5,700 acre feet. The Columbine, Ewing, and Wirtz ditches, not real large, but they do combine to bring in about 4,000 to 5,000 acre feet into Turquoise as well. And that's these ones highlighted in yellow, all store in Turquoise. Then the Twin Lakes Reservoir and Canal Company owns the Twin Lakes Tunnel, and they bring in a lot of water every year, which is stored in Twin Lakes, and then released to their entities downstream from there. And then Colorado Springs Utilities has their Blue River project. That one brings water into the Arkansas Basin, but it doesn't directly bring it into Lake County. They bring that into Montgomery Reservoir up near, I believe, near Alma. And then the Lower Arkansas Valley Water Conservancy District has a small ditch that also brings water over about 200 acre feet a year. So that's kind of just to show you that a lot of the water that you see in the Arkansas River doesn't necessarily start in the Arkansas River Basin. A lot of that water is imported and brought in from the western slope. So our project water since the year 2000, these are the acre foot amounts that we have imported through the Continental Divide, through that Boosted Tunnel over the last 25 years. You can see 50,000 acre feet in 2000, 2001, down to 15,000 in the dry year of 2002, 2012, 13,000. You know, we get those really dry years like we're looking at this year. But we can get upwards of, 2008 at 90,000. We're able to bring over a lot of water in those wet years. 95,000 in 2019. So just kind of a brief look at the vast range of imports that we can have into our system. So that was a little bit about the history. I'll launch into a quick talk about our spring and summer operations. So I don't think it's any surprise to anybody living in Colorado right now. We are facing the lowest snowpack on record. The Arkansas River Basin is looking at roughly 50% of average snow water equivalent in the snowpack right now. The National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration forecasts that about 61% of average flow is expected past the Arkansas River at Granite Gauge, right there in the heart of Lake County. We do expect to operate the Mount Elbert Power Plant normally. Unit 1 right now is available. Unit 2 is expected hopefully late 2026, early 2027, if all goes well. So barring any unforeseen outages or problems with the power plant, this is going to mean we're expecting normal flows on Lake Fort Creek, which is between 3 and 15 CFS, depending on the inflow conditions to Turquoise and depending on the time of year. We also have a diversion on Half Moon Creek. and we expect to operate that diversion normally. Last year, we had some leaks in our diversion tunnel, so we weren't able to operate that diversion. We did some work on that tunnel. We expect it to be operational this year. We expect that Turquoise Lake elevation is going to mostly remain above the minimum boat ramp elevation. Our predictions are that it might go slightly down a little bit below there during the spring, but during the heart of summer and recreation season, we expect it to be up above that boat ramp. I do have to say that water and power operations for the Fry Arc project take precedence over recreation. So if Twin Lakes gets below the minimum elevation to be able to use the pump back feature of Mount Elbert, we do have to bring water down as per our operating principles from Turquoise to fill up Twin Lakes. And sometimes that can lead to the boat ramp on Turquoise being left out of water. We avoid that if we can, but in a dry year like this, I just want to let everybody be aware that we don't expect it, but it is a possibility. We also are facilitators. We're not signatory, but we facilitate the voluntary flow management program. I don't want to get too far into the weeds on that, but if you're not familiar with that, it's a multi-use recreational program. It's sponsored by it's signed by the Southeastern Colorado Water Conservancy District, Chaffee County, Trout Unlimited, and Colorado Parks and Wildlife. The goal of the program is to regulate recreational flows on the Arkansas River, keeping flows low during the important periods for fish like spawning, fry emergence, that sort of thing. And then if it's available, we can release up to 10,000 acre feet of water stored in Twin Lakes in support of recreational boating to try to keep those flows up. And that runs from July 1st to August 15th. Normally, we try to keep a target flow of about 700 CFS at the Arkansas River at Wellsville Gauge, just downstream of Salida. This year, we don't know how much, if any, of that 10,000 acre feet will be available. We don't know how far it's going to go. A lot of it's just going to depend on what Mother Nature has in store for us as we get into those really drier periods of summer in July and August. We'll have to get some help from the monsoon season to kind of keep those flows higher. We meet with this voluntary flow management group. We just had a meeting this morning. Normally, during the heart of runoff and into the more recreational season of summer, we usually meet every couple of weeks and make sure that everybody's on the same page. And it's a great cooperative agreement. Just a quick look. So what I talked about the boat ramp. So the important lines, there's a lot going on this graph, but if you look at this red line, that is the turquoise content. That's our prediction for what the water surface elevation, or I'm sorry, the project storage is expected to be. This green line right here is that boat ramp elevation. So as you can see, we're above it right now. I think I looked yesterday and we're about 5 feet above this elevation where that green line crosses our expected storage. We're about 5 feet above it right now. We expect to be using some water before the runoff really gets going. So it could dip below there a little bit and then start recovering as a spring runoff, or lack thereof this year comes. But our expectation is to keep that within water. But again, just to keep everybody aware, it is a possibility that it might dip below that elevation this summer if things continue to stay as dry as they are. I believe this is my last slide, just some takeaways. So in a dry year like this, it means recreational boating may be limited, both on the reservoir if we do have to get below that elevation, and definitely on the river. We're not going to have a large runoff this year. There's just not going to be that much water available in the river, as I don't think is any surprise to anybody. We've had a few pretty good storage years over the last several. So right now our reservoir storage in Twin Lakes, Turquoise Lake, and in Pueblo Reservoir are all pretty much right at average for the life of the project. So we're sitting pretty good. Even though it's a dry year, we've got a lot of storage. So if next year's snowpack looks as poor as this year's, then that might change. That's when a lot of those municipalities are going to have to start using their water. And we'll start really seeing the effects of a couple of dry years in a row. As I said earlier, Mount Albert Power Plant and their related operations, they're expected to be mostly normal this year. So we don't expect to have those high flows on Lake Fork Creek. We don't expect anything other than our normal flows on Lake Fork this year. So that was very quick and dirty. If anybody has questions, please let me know. And now I got to figure out how to stop sharing. I'm not as familiar with Zoom. Okay, looks like I'm out of there. All right, so I'm available for any questions.
Mike, does the BOR take any stock in long range weather forecasts or predictions for precipitation levels for spring and summer 26?
So we do look at that. All of our predictions that we make are based on the snowpack in the SNOTEL gauges above our collection system, and those we feed into a statistical model, and that's kind of what we have to base all of our operations on. As far as monitoring flows in the Arkansas Basin, historically, only about 11% of the water that goes past any one point in the upper part of the basin is directly controlled by the Bureau of Reclamation. The rest of it is all native flow. So anything that's generated on the Arkansas River side, that all is administered by the state of Colorado as part of the water rights priority system. And then also what we call account or contract water that's owned in storage by Colorado Springs, Aurora, Pueblo Water, ag entities in eastern Colorado, et cetera, that make those river releases. So we look at them just to kind of see what we can expect, but ultimately we play a large part in facilitating, but a relatively small role in what can actually be done with the water, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So you guys don't own the power plant. Who you do own and run the power plant as a Bureau?
Yeah, so we own and operate the power plant, and I'm not as familiar with the power side of operations, but we own and operate it. And then WAPA, the Western Area Power Administration, I believe they're the ones that purchase and regulate that power.
Okay.
And Anna, if I'm way off there, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're good. WAPA directs us when to generate, and they also manage the power distribution and sales. So
I speak water, not power, but
okay.
Sometimes I try to dabble.
That is a super cool building. I don't think you were here for the tour of that, but we should do another one because the power plant is awesome.
I missed the tour. We were all so new here and busy, but love to get a peek at it sometime if you guys feel like giving us a tour. So you said both of the power generating turbines were out for a time, but now one is back and the other one's being fixed? Okay.
Yep. So in 2024, we had both units down for some maintenance. One of them came back online and then suffered a major failure. There was a seal ring that had gotten oblong and failed in that circular shaft, and it's been a major overhaul to fix that one. So they stopped work on that failed unit and put all their focus back on putting the unit one back together. It was taken down for some major maintenance. It was put back together, put back into service as quickly as possible, and now they're focusing on fixing that unit two and getting it back up and running. And we're hopeful that it'll be ready by the end of this year, first part of next year, something like that.
Okay, cool. Well, good luck with that.
We appreciate it.
Cool. I've no further questions.
Yeah, I don't have any other questions either. Thank you for the update, and we'll pray for a monsoon season.
Yep, I think that's all we can do at this point. All right, well, thank you all for having me. Like I say, if you ever have any questions, please reach out to Anna, and we'll get your questions answered. But thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming, we appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.
I guess real quick, just
Good
for
one.
the board, in the context of all this, we also learned last week at the LaCosi meeting that Clear Creek Reservoir is going to be drawn down to do work on the dam. So they're anticipating a big surge of recreational boating at Twin while that's happening, and that's starting like June 15th. So just kind of keep in mind in terms of visitation, that's something that we may be facing. Sort of increase at Twin Lakes because the other lake is.
And they had you have the meteorologist report there that does get into the predictions. So you might be able to grab that out if you weren't on that call.
I just keep hearing grumblings of a shift away from the La Nina patterns, Pacific Ocean surface
There's a lot of
temps,
uncertainties.
pointing towards a potentially wetter late spring, early summer. So,
I think it is summer, isn't it?
sure. Ish.
So Josh, let me understand that.
Sorcery.
They're gonna draw down, can you just say that again?
Sure, yeah, there's been a lot of seepage through the dam at Clear Creek Reservoir. And so at LaCosi, there's a representative from Pueblo who indicated that the project starting June 15th of this year, they're gonna draw the level of Clear Creek all the way down so that they can work on the dam. As a result, the campground there is gonna be closed during that time. I think some of the access points, they're gonna drop below their boat ramp levels.
So that's why you're thinking there'd be an increase in boat activity at Twin Lakes.
And just recreation in general. There's some really popular little beachy spots on Clear Creek that are super fun. And
So won't that help the boaters? The downstream boaters? You didn't mention that.
Oh, in terms of the river itself?
Yeah,
Potentially in terms of when they might decide to draw water, but I think it's gonna happen relatively
Oh, I see.
steadily, like to get them to the point of being able to start work.
okay.
well, there'll be some really good fishing in whatever
Yeah.
water's left in Clear Creek. There's tiger muskie
This is
in
the
it.
year to catch
Yeah, they're
muskie, yeah.
Yeah, Jurassic fish.
All right, shall we move on?
Yes, sir.
Item number 2, overview and updates regarding the Lifetime Race Series suite of events, including a recap of 2025 and focus of changes for 2026, led by Tamara
I'll be Tamara today.
Genlink.
Jen Link, Commissioner.
Am I not, I
No,
guess I've never said your last name before. Genlink?
you probably haven't.
Huh.
It's fair.
Well, thank you for coming, welcome.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. We've been trying to have this for a while and just it speaks to the capacity. Like, I think we started in late August trying to set this up. It was a little bit challenging. So what I'd like to do is keep it succinct, but also questions along the way, if that's good with you guys, if you have something that you're like, hey, I wanna know more about that. But in response to kind of the joint work session last year, the idea being that we would, I'm gonna have to tell me how to drive.
Oh. I just bumped something on my wrist here. You just keep just scrolling.
Oh, scrolling.
Yeah.
It's a scrolling method.
See, this is right here.
That thing, I'm just kidding. So in response to that, one of the requests you all had was to come back and tell us how it went. Like, we did a lot of things, so that's what part of today is about, and then to try to highlight what you can expect to see. There's a couple of things that we're proposing and have worked with Sheriff's Office and a few other folks to kind of think about, again, continuing to sustainability, safety, just all those pieces. So we'll jump into the recap and just any questions that come up, let me know. So overall numbers from last year, this just gives you a quick review. You guys have this, I think, now in your packet, right, Sandra?
Yes. Yeah.
But this gives you a quick look at what we saw actual on the line. So mountain bike camp 112, run camp 129. Marathon heavy half, 757, 816. Nothing kind of out of the norm. What you will see this year, we'll probably see a reduction on the 100 mountain bike. And then everything else I would expect to see pretty similar. We'll see, probably I would guess the mountain bike will follow somewhere between 1650 and 1700. And you'll see that as we move along.
How come there's reduction? Was there-
Purposeful, like it's just, that's not the right number
Yeah,
from our side, like where we
decrease
come in.
the quality of the product.
Make sure it's good for everybody,
Yeah.
from the community to the human, to the athlete, to the crew.
Well, last year was the first time I think I hadn't been able to hear people cross, like the announcers at my house.
Okay,
So like
it worked.
some of the volume stuff that, from my, just one single personal observation was
Yeah.
that it was, the first year I could remember that I was not listening to it.
Yeah, good. I've got that in here so we can take a look at it, but that's good to hear. I wanted to give you a snapshot. This is Placer AI stuff that we pulled, pretty close to, sometime after the event. I pulled it for the first recap. We did one with the city a while back, but so overall, this is just a snapshot of the 100 mountain bike as an example that we saw. 16,000 is the guess, and just so you guys have this, I think you probably know at this point, like the thing about Placer that's really critical is that you really have to take it inside of the borders of the building or inside the part of the corridor that you want. So this is the whole corridor of Harrison Avenue and not just a singular location. And what we saw is what we expect, it's 16,000 over the 4 days. The peak day was Saturday, and we see next that some of those peak hours are here, so you guys can look at this closer because I personally can't see it from here. But you can see that Thursday's 3K, Friday 4K. One of the questions that we were entertaining is, is this only happening right at the start or the finish? And so what we could tell from this is that the numbers are actually relatively high throughout the day and really in the middle of the day. So that's not necessarily start or finish, that's later in the day. So just good information for us to know about where we're putting traffic, and as we look at this year, we know our businesses are down significantly. We're kind of in a perilous place. So just good information to understand what the footsteps are doing. This is again back to, an ask around financial transparency. So here's your local, and again, this is only like things that I or my team approved around the event. This is not athlete inclusive. This is nothing around the athletes. That'll be more than $20 million, something like that. But what we spent dollars on locally, food and catering, 212, law around 32K, medical 74. That medical one is huge in the sense that, we've been able to keep that local instead of out on the front range, which has been a really important move over the last few years. Recycling and sustainability, that's C4. Local rentals, venue rentals, local shuttles. That's school system, that's different avenues from CMC, school district, different folks like that. Charitable contributions, I think, is a really important one. This is separate from foundation contribution or any other contribution. This is just something where we get to say, hey, right now I think we have all but 2 aid stations being hosted and captained by a local group, which means whether it is the high school mountain bike team or it is the arts team or it is whoever, they're getting that little bit of chunk of dollars to help their budget for the season. And it is, I'll show you kind of a snapshot here in a second of who all those folks are. So that's what those dollars are. And again, you'll see that doesn't include a 60K contribution to C4 and a 13,000 to Bright Start as sort of the above and beyond from the foundation. Those are just directly out of the race series. So race series and foundation dollars are different, just to have that clarity. I have a budget that we can kind of allocate certain things and make sure that our services are being used as locally as possible, and then the foundation is separate. Most of that I think is pretty, any questions there before I move?
What is the legacy?
Legacy is separate, completely separate.
Completely separate.
Completely separate, and in a previous, like last year, I shared that, I tried to separate it out purposely because it gets confusing for folks.
Yeah.
So Legacy Foundation is the original foundation, and a really critical component and arm, but very separate. And their focus is scholarships and small donation, like 5K is usually the number that they'll, 2 to 5K, somewhere in that neighborhood. The Lifetime Foundation has a tendency to focus on, they want 1 or 2 larger things. And then the charitable contributions is where we get to do kind of our 2K to 5K version. So that number of charitable contributions has hit a lot of different groups. This is kind of a snapshot of those folks, right? Is all the different groups that we have served in 2025. Just to give you an idea, and that again is there for you guys to kind of reflect back on. But it's a number of different things from, and some of this we do space and equipment. This is really a snapshot, it's not the full picture. So questions there? Okay. So sound was one of our topics for last year. And one of the things that we promised to do was to take a picture, kind of get the decibels. And we've all agreed that decibels are a hard way to manage, but it's a starting point. It gives us hey, we can compare that with actual experience, right? So here's what it was. This one is taken from the, and it's actually taken, if you think about where the stage is at the football field, it's taken just to the left. It's not even taken all the way on the other side. So it was at 61.8 decibels. What we tried to do, and I shared this, I think, with all of you afterwards, is did some research on what the state and some of our local communities are doing around sound, and then just modeled that. So this really stuck with, during actionable hours below 65, and then in the middle of the night below 55, I think it is. We'll see later, I've got the numbers there for you. But I think this is where we compare what was real life experience to what we saw. You're not the first person to say it seemed like it was notably less loud. So we've had good feedback on that. Any questions there? We did decrease the wattage of the shell. I just gotta say, Kenneth was not happy, but we did it.
What's wattage?
It's like how much watt is in the actual shotgun shell. So the more and the tighter the pack, the louder the bang.
Soundproofing. Gotcha.
Yes, some of them less than others, yes. Okay. The helicopter. It stayed at the community fields and then followed from there as we planned. Didn't have any issues. You'll see later I have the instant command log, and I will show you the 12 calls or whatever we had throughout the year, throughout the season, not just for one event, but for the whole season. We tracked 12 calls, I think it was, or 14. One of them, notably, was a human calling to say the helicopter's flying backwards, just for our entertainment. But did anybody hear anything on the helicopter that was adverse? Just want to check that out.
I did not.
Seemed like we hit the mark, stayed where it was supposed to stay. Big area focus. I almost wore this shirt today, I thought it would be funny. Leadville local team. So this group started meeting just after the town hall, kind of in tandem with the joint work session. And they're amazing. Like, they took it very seriously, they are very engaged, they are on board to be back in this year, so we'll talk about that. But essentially, this team did a lot of things from the week of, meeting early on and really brainstorming together, doing some groundwork. We held a lot of different meetings from 6th Street residents to just different business groups, different things, trying to kind of get the full picture of how we best make this a sustainable set of events. And this group was really critical in that. During a race week, for example, they would, like if we take the marathon, we started with the marathon, we didn't wait for the hundreds, we wanted to kind of check it out and see how it would go. So they were out there that week they were out with, not sure if this was good or not good, but they were connecting with folks and like making sure that their parking was safe, that they felt like they could get in and out of their locations, what did they need, and talked with all the residents along. So on the marathon, that would have been on East 6th instead of West 6th, right? So really kind of made contact with all those folks and tried to get ideas around what would be helpful for them. And then during an event, we're out there in all kinds of bright yellow things and being available to interact between the athletes and the property owners to try to help keep folks off the property. So during the marathon, we did not do doublecade. We did introduce doublecade into the 100s. We didn't do that during the marathon, though. We're planning to do a section of that to protect the Mo's businesses and a few things there this year and just add that piece in. It worked really well. We liked it, so why not, right? But this group was also out there with the businesses, giving them a packet every week. It was updated of what could they expect to happen this week, where are all the key things that they need to know, all that kind of stuff. So super successful. Any questions on the local team?
The primary focus was on, sorry if you said it and I missed it, but it was just outreach to the local commercial entities?
I would say the primary focus of why we engaged that group was really to start to have boots on the ground locals who would understand better the property intersection between kind of those property pieces and the athletes and the crews. That's where it started. What it developed into was also making sure that we were getting our businesses up to speed every week in preparation for, where the bathrooms would be that where the this or the that. If it's the Summer Rush, everything's away from downtown, but they would be aware of that. But if it's like Marathon, everything's happening here. And it's helped us, I think, identify, like working with Harvey from Moe's. Like this year, we will put signs up that say, Moe's and other businesses this way, Expo this way, right? Like we'll just continue to do things like that. But that team started with, I think, more of the idea of how do we interface well between the athlete, the experience for the community, and help the athletes and the crews understand how to be nice humans in our backyard. Other questions there?
Double cade, you're saying that just means when you've got barricades on both sides of the street?
So the double barricade, and we'll see that with I have a picture down here somewhere, we'll see that with the hundreds. This is what it looks like. So in the middle here, like where they're standing is where the race is. This is a spectator line, and on this side is where resident property is sort of protected and a walkway through so that we're not having folks standing on people's property.
Cool.
Does that make sense? So it's double on both sides.
Yeah, that zone right there is where I feel like the ambassadors would have, a lot of door knocking, a lot of like, hey, here's how we're gonna set this up.
Yep.
Do you need to walk across the street? Do we need a gap here so you guys can get to, because that is something I feel like I've heard in the past, not this year specifically, but people like, I can't even get to my buddy's house, because there was no little gap, no walkway gaps to get through.
Yeah, I mean, we can always continue to look at it, refine it. We heard lots of positive things, and this was a lot of engagement with 6th Street residents, like a lot of planning from March, April, May, before we even got into the season. And then as we got closer, rechecking in, okay, here's what we're planning to do. And I think that worked really well. I mean, it was a lot of engagement, which I think was important, and like the other side of that engagement is really around this piece. Like we spent a lot of energy around how to be a good human on our website and our podcasts and anything that was going out, I just did one last week, same thing, like really kind of trying to get that message out to remind folks, you're coming into a town that's 2,700 people. This is not a big place. You're getting the privilege of start and finish in a private residential area. How do we behave in that space? So a lot of energy spent around that component and trying to get that message out and bridge that, just start to shift that a little bit, which I think from everything we held a residence, we had a conversation after, we had both a business and a 6th Street, those pieces to just kind of check in and like, how did this go? Did we hit the mark? And we got a lot of really positive, less like what else we should do to change, but can we continue to do it, was more of the, like, this is good, let's continue forward. So a lot of things on website, really got deep into it. We also have a Visit Leadville page or something like that, a Leadville page that's very Leadville centric, and we've gotten pretty close on being able to categorize and grab as many businesses as possible to have on there. That was a big outreach that happened. We probably had 55, 60 businesses attend the leveraging events, which we'll continue to do this year, but how do we leverage events? How do we get footsteps in your doors? And really kind of an awesome sharing and creative brainstorming session, which I hadn't seen as much of before, which was just sort of like, hey, we're making progress somewhere. And I don't even mean race series, right? I just mean 55 businesses sitting together, 40 businesses with 55 people talking about, hey, I tried this, hey, this didn't work, but this worked. And it was a really productive conversation that will continue and really think about how we're getting that information to these folks to go and be a part of that and be a part of the businesses and go to those businesses. So a lot of focus in that area. Yes. How long do you think we'll spend on restrooms if I start this topic?
It's been a hot one lately.
It's a hot one anywhere we go, isn't it? So we added 16 toilets on the Boulevard section, another kind of got as many folks from the Boulevard who wanted to, and we drove the Boulevard together and we picked where they would go because they had some definite like, we don't want them here, we don't want them there. And it opened up some things that I think are good for all of us to be aware of, is they have concerns about some of the camping that happens down on that section of the county. It's kind of county property, I think, in there behind the rodeo grounds. And not wanting to promote that to continue. I don't really know where the county's sitting with that as a okay place to camp or not camp. And I think more of it having to do with folks getting in there and kind of living there for the summer. whether it is race folks or just folks in general. So what they were really keen on was not wanting to have toilets right there that would continue to increase that idea or notion. So we got those spread out where they wanted them, had a lot of positive response from all the boulevard folks, and that seemed to work well. We will continue to increase where the toilets live. We're gonna continue to brainstorm how people do not go to the bathroom in people's yards, right? Like, how many toilets do I have to have in how many locations so that you don't do that? And we will, like, one of our issues, we have pictures of folks, but we don't have bib numbers. So when we can get a bib number where we see it happening, we will make some very strong statements around that. As in, you just managed to get yourself a DNF on a bucket list item, so. So restrooms, I think, big deal. Waste, our goal was 80%, we got to 76%. Largely this happened because one of the things they got ordered for Silver Rush, nobody realized it was glass mugs, and guess what they come in? Every single mug had styrofoam around it. So that has gotten our marketing team to think a little bit more about what is the thing we're ordering. But our diversion, this is something that's really critical across the nation around events, right? How do we think about, and it's something that we're working on with a larger group in the state of how are we building sustainable events and really thinking about the footprint and making sure that we are promoting sustainability across the board and not just more garbage and more things going into local transfer stations, that kind of thing. So this is higher than where we were last year, and it's probably one of the higher diversion rates for events like this in the state, in the nation, I guess, actually, is what we heard from Izzy. Was at a conference. It was like, the race series somehow ended up in the lead on this, and that's fantastic news. So, questions there? Start finish line. So this was, again, back to the 6th Street conversation. This was a big emphasis, and I think I kind of laid the focus here on what we were doing. We did see a huge change. Like, we got people to stay inside of the cave where we wanted them to stay. And that was a large focus of what the ambassadors were doing and will continue to do, is help make sure that we have that separation and that the private residents feel like they have their space and are not like finding people camped out, using their things, sitting on their things. Like, we've heard all kinds of stories, right? So that was pretty successful. Sound and noise level was a big focus, right? Everything from music to like what time of day it was okay to have the music on. Again, we went with the decibels that we talked about, and we'll continue to do that. Barricade, we talked about that. We will this year go a little bit further past Pine Street. Talked with the chief about that, Chief of Trelka. We learned, we got that double barricade. We got it to and past Pine Street, but we'll go a little bit further. I noticed this past year, I still look down, and particularly in the mountain bike, you see people crowding that in, and we will stop that from happening. It's just not safe and not cool. So again, protect private property. Local ambassadors keep doing their thing. We delivered signs to 6th Street residents early in the week, cones for parking where needed, et cetera, right? And just present throughout that. Any questions there? Bored yet? Not bored yet?
No, I'm waiting to make sure you're not gonna cover something other things I wanna ask about moving up, so.
Okay, back to be a good human behavior, dedicated website, social media, QR codes included. Some of the other things we did was to put up signage that's like, eat, drink local. So we had a lot of, go to town, here's a QR code that sends you to all the places, so put up those signs as well, that kind of thing. Parking, we have developed a decent parking system at this point. Decent, I say, it's not the answer, it's not the final answer, right? It's working to the best of our ability. We know that we're trying to tackle this through the parking task force and through other arenas, but we have a pretty clear map that is being put out into the world and embedded everywhere we can get it. We have beefed up the staffing in those areas, the markings, all the different things that we need between. So we've got, right now, until Jack Saunders ends up doing something with his property that's behind the rodeo arena, we're able to use all of that into the community fields, high school, middle school, elementary. There are some spots around Washington and 3rd that we use as well. That's another few hundred spots as well. So we've we've created this space, we've created a parking map. It is everywhere you can possibly get it, including getting to the businesses, so the businesses know if somebody asks them where they're supposed to be going as well. It is on the website, it's in all the social media. So the parking piece, I think, will continue to be the one that we focus on and wonder about how to do the best we can do. It's hard to get people to park where you want them to if there's not a repercussion to their behavior. When we are able to see it, we can have them towed, and we will, and end up even, when it's, especially if we find out it's a local, to be quite honest, like, we did do this once, somebody's car was not where it should have been for 3 days, and it was in the middle of the start line, and we paid the bill. We moved the car, but we paid the bill, right? And we did that with law enforcement. So, the street closure for the start of Mountain Bike and Run, you may recall, these again are more city-centric things, but I think they're important for you to know because they're right outside your door, right? And just to have awareness on, because it doesn't matter, the humans don't always go to city for city things and county for county things, sometimes those overlap. So what we agreed on was that the race series would manage the street closure. Harrison is closed, this is the only time it's closed for our events, is for 2 hours in one event for the mountain bike, from 5 to 7. To just keep it safe, right? And so we managed that between some Ford vehicles, some Ford Broncos that we had, law enforcement vehicles that we had. We worked with law enforcement to make sure that we all agreed that this was a safe plan. We managed the side streets, all those things, and we're pretty successful with this. We had to change with the city on the run because it's only 20 minutes. That we're just or 40 minutes, I think, but we're calling it a delay as opposed to a closure. So that's kind of the updates there. Anything on the road piece that's important to you guys that
I'm just wondering if the outreach to participants, does it focus or primarily cover like the time window of the events? Or is there any component of that lets people be aware, like, hey, if you have the freedom, lifestyle that you come up here a month early to start training, and you're living in your Sprinter van on Harrison Avenue, which I see, and I don't wanna like immediately peg someone as like, oh, they're here for the races, I can tell, but like sometimes you can tell, like the stickers, the bracts, is there ever anything like, hey, like even if you're here before the races, we still want you to pay attention and adhere to this stuff?
we can do more, but yes, I mean, we're like right now, and we'll get to this in a minute, like the conversation on Be a Good Human has started. It started now, and it started like, as I said, I did 2 interviews last week, and it's a part of those interviews, it's a part of everything we're messaging in every possible way. And we can get more pointed on it, if we're feeling like, hey, we wanna see something like this, no problem. But we are really hammering hard on this to the point of, we might have wristbands that say Be a Good Human this year, that they have to wear as a reminder. But yes, and I think we can still think about creative ways to tell the message more. To me, this is beyond the race series. This is everything we do about, we want tourists here, but how are we having sustainable tourism? We need the footsteps, but how do you behave here?
Yeah.
So it can start here because we have an avid audience that we can speak to, and who else can we also get this message to? So love to dream and scheme on that and how we continue to do it.
Yeah, and we just don't have the capacity to have people enforcing every parking infraction that goes on, and it's, I think the best way to approach it was to just outreach and let people know, like, hey, this is kind of not so awesome, so be a good human and don't, live in your car on the side of the road here for a couple weeks before the race.
Yes, we have folks that park, and they're not all, like, some of them are, obviously have more expendable income than others, if you will, because we definitely have folks behind the race series store that are living there sometimes, and they are not race folks. And we eventually get to a point where, and even PD and Sheriff's Office have limitations on what they can do in those situations, not just because of capacity to do it, but because of what is the infraction and how are we actually handling this infraction?
Yeah.
What am I actually infracting
What do
against?
the codes even say?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of discussion on that.
And I'd prefer to be like, as an outreach thing instead of a ticket on a windshield, because we want these people here, it's our local businesses depend on this stuff, and then that's becoming more and more clear to me every year that, there are other towns that would kill to have an event like this in their town to bring boots on the ground and people indoors.
Well, and right now, like, we're talking about this thing that Main Street is working on for Harrison, right? And one of the questions is, can we get a 5K? Because we believe somewhere in this culture, we believe that having something tied to that is what's gonna help bring the humans. So to your point, I think it is a large part of the population, but we also know that within every population, doesn't matter who they are, we're going to see people who are not behaving as we'd like them to behave. So outreach works to a point, but I think until we have some kind of a system in place that also forces that, which we're exploring with the city, like what that can look like and what can be amenable to everybody. So we're kind of in the depths of that conversation right now. We had brought in a company to do a proposal that has been operating out of Breck, Idaho Springs, Crested Butte, all the major towns.
The Breck Park folks?
The Breck Park folks, you don't like them either. Different conversation.
No comment.
Different day. Yes, okay.
One more question on the road part. I know it's totally legal to ride two abreast, but I think I've seen a lot of three abreast and are you gonna address that here, or can I just ask you if that's part of your Good Human campaign?
100%.
Just let people pass. It creates animosity.
100%.
So, and I've been a rider since I was 14 years old, and it's not something you wanna do with
I personally
indignity.
stop all the humans I see doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no,
Just
but
let us
beyond that, it is a part of everything we put out. Do not do this. It's a part of Racer Day meeting. It's a part of what's on the website. It's a part of all those things. And it's like trying to teach people the constant. I think if there's one single thing that is probably the most animosity, that is because it's scary, right?
Yeah.
It's super scary. I come around the corner and there's three people abreast and it doesn't matter. And every one of those is gonna be associated with the race series, and 89% of them will be
Right.
somehow involved. They're not all, but they will be mostly.
And that's all the more vocal opponents see. They don't see the groups of people who are riding single file.
Oh, I
They
know.
only see and remember the three abreast folks. And it really parallels a lot of stuff I deal with when we're on the OHV subject, is no one notices the people who are following the rules, people who are behaving properly. They only see the bad apples.
Yeah.
And that's all that sticks in their head, and that's what the whole group gets judged by. So it's a really hard challenge to mitigate that. I wanna rewind one subject real quick. Is there any messaging about single-use plastic bottled water consumption? I mean, our tap water is cleaner than what they're buying in plastic things, and with how much our
Right,
landfills
but
at
do we want,
capacity.
but our folks wanna sell it.
Safeway does, I mean, they're not.
It's not just Safeway, I'm just gonna tell you straight up.
Gas station.
Well,
It's gas
okay.
stations, it's Twin Lakes,
I
it's
would
like,
love
what
to
can we
see
do to?
refillable water bottles and
Well, now you're talking about a campaign that is like bigger than,
yeah, okay.
can we get some stations, some water stations? Do we have some funds laying around for?
There's a lot of faucets around there.
I don't disagree with
It's
you.
watching those shelves in Safeway get completely emptied out, and I'm like, oh man,
I mean-
they're paying more than they pay for gasoline for something that should be 5 cents a gallon off a tap, not even 2 cents a gallon. And our tap water's better than what they're buying, and it's like just, I always wanna stop people in the grocery store, like, hey, our tap water's better than that stuff.
That's a habit for a lot of people that live in
Yeah.
cities and stuff.
It's, we need an excise tax on bottled water.
It is, okay, should we go on?
Yes, ma'am, sorry.
It's okay.
I saw a squirrel over there.
You saw a squirrel and then there we were. Again, we talked about this, we did a business engagement on June 9th, over 50 businesses, humans in attendance, shared ideas, it was really pretty powerful. And it ended in, we put out basically there's a link and they can reach out to us if they're not on there. They can reach out and it says it on the bottom of the website, if you're not on here and you want to be featured, please reach out to us. Because of course we can't get everybody, but we're trying to figure out how to make sure it's available to everybody to be posted here. I think one of the things that we're gonna continue, we're really trying to brainstorm, which again is not a county thing, but business in our county is all of our issues, right? And it's like that interface between expo and business, and like really trying to make sure that we've got as many spots available for our local businesses to be there. But also we struggle with that component of, I can't be in two places at once because we're small business owners. And so just continuing to brainstorm that idea, but a lot of the conversation actually wasn't, we did have an increase, we saw maybe 15% more take advantage of that, and we're trying to brainstorm together, and continue to think about with brands coming in and that are locally already in our stores, like Leadville Outdoors, how are we brainstorming with those brands to do things with shops that are here and not cannibalizing sales in those stores? And it's just, we're in this, we need the footsteps, we need the event, we need the thing. And how do we continue to feed our local businesses within that? And as we know, different events feed different businesses, and that will always be true. But we want to continue to brainstorm that, and we will. We did see growth in terms of who came in and took up a space, which we loved. We want to continue to think about how we are brainstorming that concept of, and also the education to the sponsor side. Like, that's been a huge push for me, is like, hey, you guys want you to think about what you're talking with your sponsors about. Also, that you're in this small town that's really needing to benefit economically. The reason that these events exist is purely around economic development. It is around the fact that we were really in a big dive for a period of time. And so to move that away on any level doesn't work. So we continue to have those conversations. We're seeing positive things, but it's going to continue to be a work in progress. Incident log, this was a fun one. So this is kind of what the log looks like. This was out in a number of places. We have cards, we have all kinds of stuff that's going out to try to make sure anybody who wants to get a hold of that phone number so that they can make a direct call. It's coming to us, and hopefully less on city county directly, but it's coming to us first so that we can start to field it. And it seemed like with the city, we heard that was fairly effective. I don't know from the county side what kind of calls you guys saw on your side, if anybody has a track record of that.
Good evening.
Or emails. But the idea will be that we'll continue this hard. And so what we saw, we circulated that every possible place, including on the website. I'm putting the number on the back of the bibs this year, like all kinds of places that we can. The bib is not really the answer, right? It's the crew members, it's those folks, it's our residents, it's our humans who need to have that number so they can call. Sorry, there was 15. And that's the breakdown of what the calls were. 2 DNFs, 2 medicals, 1 unlocatable human, which we found. And that happens often. And what's interesting is that who grabbed that was a crew member or somebody who grabbed the number, like, I can't find my human. We get that. You have lag between cell service and update of where somebody is on course, so we get that. 2 were a parking issue. Someone moved cones, a resident to park. So what was cool about this is then we had people right there to go talk to them and have just interaction right away with the humans and find the solution together to what the situation was. One self-resolved, I think that was another person who parked where they shouldn't have parked and got themselves stuck behind the closed gates out at Twin Lakes, above the dam. And sort of that was on them, and they got that resolved.
When you say we have people out there, in mentioning that, what does that force? What's the size of that group?
Depends on the event, but it's 4 to 6 to 8.
Okay.
We're kind of examining that this year to decide, will we need more humans? Will we have more for this event? We kind of highlighted that in the after action review with that team of like, what did you see? Boots on the ground. Was it too long of shifts? What did our residents see? Did we have enough humans? So what it means is somebody from Monday of race week is manning the phone. So for the incident log, we've got somebody manning the phone. We've got anywhere from 4 to 6 humans starting Monday going out, knocking on doors, depending on where we are starting the race from. Like obviously at the rodeo grounds, that's different than, or at the Dutch Henry, that's different. But, I think, and then like, you've got a whole chunk of time with say 100 run where nobody's in town, right? You've got a 30-hour race where 80% of that is away from that area. So we don't have those folks right there, but we do have them manning the phones and in some cases out in Twin Lakes instead of here, if that makes sense. The 2 calls from the same person on the helicopter. The first one was to let us know that there was a helicopter. The second one was to let us know that it was flying backwards. 2 concerned about their location or ensuring access was possible. like just asking, like being aware of the fact that there was where they were gonna camp, and was there gonna be any issues, or was it a problem? One was a Colorado State Patrol trying to get hold of me. One littering from previous year, not from this year. One incorrect package, so you can just see, it was an interesting, and we're just gonna continue to hammer this, right? So we will get the number out early and often, get it around town so everybody has it, and just continue to try to take that out of the capacity burden to the city and the county. You know, it seemed really effective with the city, sounded like that call log came way down. And folks, like, part of what I think happened is people were like, I have a mechanism, I have a tool. So we just saw some of that come down. But I think also there was humans that they could go talk to on the street. So if there was a direct issue, there was somebody in a yellow Mally that they could go to.
On the city side of things, where were they traditionally getting all the calls into? Was it like their law enforcement numbers, or their city planning?
No, I'd say
or-
Andrew would get some, there was a number of different avenues. It felt like they were admin as much as law enforcement. So it wasn't going dispatch, it was going, and city council members.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't get anything in my inbox about the races this
That's a
year.
good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else here? That's our log, we'll continue forward, again, is the point.
Will you partner with the cell service that partnered with us this last weekend? They had a special login.
Sawatch.
Is it
So-
called Sawatch?
We have a very dedicated system
Okay.
ourselves. So we have probably 15 Starlinks throughout the course. So we don't face that issue, and that's been a purposeful integration. I'll work with Norm to see what he's got going, and however we can promote what he's doing, if it makes sense, for sure. But we also have been, I guess, self-reliant, but also self-directed to take care of that issue in advance, because there's a lot of things tied up in the safety of that, right? Like, there's timing and there's people being able to track their human, but there's also, we've got to be able to communicate with law enforcement as well, and with medical and all those folks. So we have, for the last 5 years, I think 3 years ago, we personally invested in 8 Starlinks, and then the timing group that we contract with, it's a part of their responsibility to have the same amount that's needed for each 8 stations, so it puts us at a pretty large number and broad scope of internet access. How'd it go, though? How did it work?
This last weekend?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I wasn't here, but we got a special login password as locals to bypass some of
Yeah.
the traffic. I guess it gets so jammed up you can't use your phone.
It gets incredibly saturated, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think whatever ways we can solve that collectively is awesome. So I think what Norm is doing is really important as well.
Yeah.
And honestly, to have him do that and to continue with what we're doing then just helps unsaturate some of that, particularly where it has to do with safety, law and medical.
That makes you feel special when someone says, hey, you're a local, here's a special password. You can give it to your friends, if you got friends, but, you know, anyway.
Yeah.
Sidebar.
Yeah. Continue, so 2026, focus and direction, here we go. We'll continue to focus on sustainable events, we'll collectively assess and address, you know, like I said to you already, we're gonna lengthen the barricade on 6th Street, I've already added some toilets in key areas and just continue to add them as we see fit. I'm gonna continue, and our team will continue to analyze the start-finish line and just how we are going to, one of the things that we've interfaced with that's really tricky, the new company took over the toilet company that we work with that actually has enough toilets to manage what we do. And so they've been in a learning phase for 2 years now. And we're trying to figure out how to work with their learning phase to get them to catch up to where we need them to be, which is, you know, things like moving them Friday night onto Harrison for Saturday morning, because that is really the critical component, is how do we just make this really accessible where people are not doing silly things. And right there with that, we were prepared. If somebody came forward with a bib number this year, and you're doing something that we have clearly said, and it's within our rules, it's written there, you can get disqualified for this. You know, I'm ready to, and we as a team are ready to make a decision around that just exemplifies this is why it's a priority. And bummer, sorry, bathroom is important, but there's 62 of them right around you. So changing human behavior, as we've learned, is not easy, and it is a process. patience being a big scaffold to that whole thing. We're working on this concept of off-season marketing with local businesses. I will say we're gonna continue to work on this and try to figure out what can we do. You know, there'll be some things that we do around this May 2nd event that will show up where we try to use that group to get them here. You know, we want people spending dollars in the off-season, and that's a really solid base of humans that we can draw on when we choose to want them to come. So we're working on that. That's something we're gonna continue to focus on and really work with some of our local businesses on what does that look like? What are we trying to market? What message are you trying to get out? And also build things around that really, where it fits with this audience, then we can message that group. We wanna work with the city on welcome signs for town. This has been brought up by a few folks. And really trying to figure out how are we welcoming with sustainability as the scaffold, right, as the foundation. But we see in many locations where we have welcome signs into town, and it's not just welcoming races, right, it's welcoming the human with the caveat of how do you behave. Stories on local heroes, athletes and business residents, so we'll continue to do things like that and really think about how are we highlighting. I mean, I will say this about our live streaming this past year. I think if I take off a Lifetime hat for a second and an EDC hat for just a second, that's worldwide branding that we can't purchase. So that live streaming was touching folks outside of this country, and we were getting feedback. You know, I think the question is how do we use it in the time that we want to use it? We don't need them to come in July anymore. That's not what we need. But how do we access that level of optics in the seasons that make sense for us? So it's a continual conversation and thought process. Working close.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed watching it instead
It's
of
pretty fun.
coming to town and trying to drive around and watch the race. It's a pretty cool spectator.
We're introducing it for the run this year,
Okay.
which I think will be even more spectacular. We'll not have a helicopter involved. So
Yeah.
don't worry, we're not gonna come in June and go, hey, by the way. No helicopter, that was my hard line, but also like, how are we touching and leading on that with running? The ultra running world is a really important, I looked at you for a second because you are an ultra runner. You know, it's a really important audience, but it's also the ethos, right? This is where this started, and it started with something very different than mountain biking. It started with the ethos of something that wasn't happening anywhere else. And we wanna really, I think that is a place we can play with our messaging as Leadville too, of what does it mean to be a part of this community? And get into that ethos component and really use that. So the live streaming for that I'm pretty excited about. It will be drone only and on foot and e-bike and that kind of thing, but it will be a really cool thing. And I think even for me, I got to watch after all of it and go, oh, I don't like that, oh, I don't like that. It was a really good way to see some of the things that are happening out there that we can assess as well, because I certainly can't be everywhere either. So worldwide branding, but also lots of information. Law enforcement. I gotta say, you guys, since we've had Heath in his role, this has just astronomically been a win, and we have increased year on year. Learning and being able to go, oh, we need more law enforcement here, oh, we need more support here. How do we keep this safe for everybody? How do we assess what's really important here? No, that's good. So we'll continue to do that, and we've already been chatting and trying to talk through, like the ranger piece, the Colorado Rangers. So just for optics, we have Colorado State Patrol, Colorado Rangers, SOs, Police Department. We have a wide range, and then we have search and rescue, hospital, Fly for Life as needed, like all these different resources here and organized as a part of this. And
Can I ask that we loop in whoever OEM is?
I can't wait. Yes.
It won't be me. But as
Yes.
soon as that person is on board, I really like to loop them in.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you're gonna address this in a minute, so sorry for interrupting. I think questions I have, as I was the OEM last year and the La Plata fire started that Sunday evening,
Yeah.
is knowing, what a backup plan would be if that had happened while we were all out there.
I'm on board with that,
So,
that's an ultimate.
Figuring out like what would that, cause I thought the Twin Lake shuttle was the best it's ever been and just the changes that were made to getting to Twin Lakes, but then my question is what would the backup plan be if the fire had happened while everybody was out there? And so I think those are the things that it'd be great to have, like if this happened, we would have this backup plan.
And in my mind, having that direct experience of ground zero for floods and for wildfire on the Front Range as a firefighter with folks trapped and how we got them out. And there was moments where, like in the flood, it was a helicopter. It was a lot of big resources coming in to get people out. And I think to your point, and as you know, I've sent an email saying I agree with that. Like, how are we planning? And I'm really looking forward to who that person ends up being. And at least at that level, one of the things I would wonder about is how is that human helping be the gatekeeper of and planning together, but also ultimately not gatekeeper of the whole thing, but more in line with what criteria has been met here that helps us plan. But I think what we don't have right now is we don't have an evacuation plan for some of these areas and key areas. And some of that's going to have to be, like if we got into that situation, that will be an OEM making that call along with the sheriff to pull in National Guard or whoever it is. Like that's where we were with the flood, it was National Guard. And we're not gonna be able, what we want is we wanna identify to the best of our ability models and tabletop exercises that let us see, hey, we should have, this section over here is well mitigated, it got an LZ, it's got all these things, so we wanna start to move people and have those identified throughout the course. I have LZs identified and have had those identified for a while, but that doesn't solve this. So I look forward to it. I don't have the answer, but I look forward to brainstorming it together as opposed to, because I think it's a bigger question for us in general, particularly the year we're in.
Yeah.
The drought we're in.
The fire danger is really high in thinking about how would we get, having a plan to fall back on so we could get people out.
I mean, if that, right, that's a tabletop, like if that fire happened to be the lower part of the pass, of Hope Pass, and we've got a significant thing we've got to, so I'm with you, and I'd love to think about that.
Well, you're just as likely to get a foot of snow.
That would be great. I would take that.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, I'm nervous about this too. I gotta be honest with you. This is probably the number one thing I'm most nervous about, and I'm looking forward to you guys finding the ideal candidate and being able to work with them and think about it from that. It's been on my mind for 5 years. Like, I've been asking this question, but we haven't quite been there to really have the right human to start and have the right capacity to start to strategize. I mean, your other big events are in town, so it's a little easier to figure out what you do, right? But anyway, we're gonna continue with Love the Locals, we're gonna continue with Instant Contact, we're gonna continue with business support, Expo business support, sound. Sound will be the same, you'll see that really be a focal point, that we will keep it at the same levels. And if we find that we're getting feedback that we need to shift it again, we'll shift it again. But it seemed like we had a pretty solid win this past year from all information shared. Be a Good Human will be a big focus. We've already talked about this, we'll continue forward with them. Again, same thing, sound, here's your decibels are in here, so sub-decibel between 7 and 10 p.m., below 55, 10 to 7 a.m., so it's clearly laid out. Again, as we know, this is, somebody can come back and go, that was still too loud, and we'll go, okay, we can show you the picture that it was, but then let's reduce it, or can't hear a thing, we're good. So we're just gonna continue to monitor that really closely. Again, same thing with toilets, Be a Good Human, I think I've touched on this enough at this point, it's a big focus for me. What do we expect? 150 for camps, that will not change, those are your dates, so you can refer back to that. The biggest date change, and I think everybody should know this by now because Boom Days is back a weekend, so that put the mountain bike back a weekend. But everything here, there's no other specific request to county or needed for county in the mountain bike or the run camp. Nothing really changes. Right now we have requested the police lead out, that's just there for your visibility, because on Saturday ride, we do have 7:30 a.m. start and chief is on board, so it's 150 people. We go the start basically from the race series store through the light. He gets us out of town. He did it this past year, so nothing big there. Let's focus on any questions on mountain bike camp or run camp for this year. I will say this about that and about fire. So when we did have a fire that we couldn't change anything about 2 years ago. We just modified in real time. So I changed what courses we did, we changed whatever we needed to change to really be thoughtful. And even last year, we knew that during mountain bike, we had a potential, riot's not the right thing, what's the other one? Not riot, but the positive side of riot, protest. Like, we knew that we had a potential protest the Saturday of mountain bike camp, so with the sheriff, we analyzed it, we said, hey, let's split the days, so we're just not in town and we're not a part of the problem. So the one piece I can say is we will address in real time. We changed our courses when the fire was out there all the way through stage race. We just cut that section out, changed it, did whatever we needed to do. And we will continue to do that preemptively stuff. The thing that's hard is the thing that happens in the moment. Okay. Marathon, expected attendance, everything's here, just a quick snapshot so you can grab it easily. Expected start line 7:50 per event. Your marathon starts at 6:30, heavy half starts at 9. Again, this is all east side. Our biggest concern here that I work closely with the sheriff and search and rescue on is the exposure time that we have. And this year will be one that I feel like our level of risk increases a bit. But mosquito pass, like, right now it looks like we're not gonna have the issues of shoveling snow. That's nice. But the flip side of that is, I wonder if we'll be preemptively more at risk of a lightning storm in the afternoon or all day long or something weird weather-wise. And our issue there with mosquitoes is just as a high-level awareness, this is what we think about and what we work closely with all of our resources with, is what do we do should we have a storm coming in? One of the things we have in place that we work through search and rescue with is we have a relationship with NOAA that we are working early, like we'll start having meetings with them May, and then we have each week of race week, we'll meet with them several times before we get to the race to have, hey, what are we expecting for weather? We'll have real-time updates. If we see a storm that's shifted, is moving faster, we know that. Like, we called the race, halted the race, paused the race for Silver Rush last year. And that was all in conversation with NOAA because we did have lightning that was within 10 miles, within 5 miles. And it was directly where the pocket was important. It was over where the race was. So we paused the race and then we restarted it. I see it.
Open Snow launched a lightning, I don't know if it was a separate app of theirs or not, but that
There's a
might be
few
a
lightning apps out there.
good resource to.
NOAA's just fantastic because I get to call them right then and there and they'll call me like, here's what's coming your way. And we can make some decisions in real time. That one snuck up on us and it was like immediately boom. And so we just got out and we paused the race at Black Cloud. We were on the tail end of it. So we paused, got those folks to there. We got them in a van and shuttled them out. So they didn't get to finish and then there were some folks who did and we just worked through that on our side. So the lightning apps are great. NOAA's fantastic. It's been a strong resource and we'll continue to work with them. That's my biggest concern, that's on everybody's radar, is just understanding that component, mosquito pass is a real thing. So lead outs will be PD, again, will be coordinated with SO and dispatch, and there's a lot of coordination in the marathon just on that side of being prepared to jump. This is for your awareness, we asked for and got granted, so that we don't have through traffic across Poplar. This has become a thing, and it's been true for years now, but we just asked for this to be closed. Still can park here. We want to keep the alleyways open so that people can get in and out and around there and they can park here, but they can't cross over. 600, so 6 a.m. to, we said 10 o'clock, it's not gonna be that, it's gonna be till like 3 o'clock.
As long as Leslie can get to Moe's, we're good.
Well, and we're gonna make sure she has a special walkway, so we're fine. Okay, Silver Rush weekend. Nothing major here, you guys, like this has been an ongoing, like how do we handle McQuethy and College Drive, and we've gotten pretty good at this. We've got the Rangers down there, we've done some good signage. I'll get with Michael and Mabel, you know, as we get a little closer and we'll talk about, we put signs on either end. I noticed the Copper Mountain sign was up for, it was probably for ski touring too, but it was an event before that, and I was like, oh, that's cool, that we got Leadville event this weekend, so when I coordinate that as well, that's great. We had some cool coordination with contractors who had signs out, who were just like, sure, we'll switch them on for you for this weekend. Out in the Twin Lakes area as that construction was going on out there. So A lot of coordination around signage and communication that will continue. Rangers will be in that Dutch Henry area as they have been the last couple of years. That's been super successful to help manage that safely and help some people not be as stupid on their bikes as they are sometimes. Stage race weekend, again, the one piece here that we have worked with the sheriff's office on is on Sunday, the race goes from Twin Lakes Dam back home. And we're gonna make a small shift. And it's essentially a soft, it'll be 10-minute closure. So they come out of the dam. And instead of that choke point along, there's a single track that comes out of there and takes them over to County Road 10. Instead of that, soft closure, so they're coming out of here. And they generally go this way, and it's just like 350 people just choked. So we all looked at it last year together, like Heath and Benny and I, and they were like, hey, I think we can make this happen. So the idea is a soft closure. They come out here, go across and up, and we get them through and it's over. And we don't have that choke point. It gets them moving faster and it gets them out of that section faster.
Wait a sec, can you, I'm sorry, so that whole crew area there,
It's a stage race only.
oh, this is stage race only, got it.
It will
So is
not
there,
happen during the 100 mile.
is there a trail there, or are you gonna run them
On the road. They'll just hold, we'll hold traffic on either side.
Okay,
They'll hold it, not us.
Yeah.
And then we'll get them over and out of there. And it literally, like the gun goes off at 9,
oh, I
they'll
see,
be through there by 9:10.
this is day 3.
Day 3, very short amount of time, just safer.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions there?
10 minutes sounds doable.
So 100 mountain bike, I think the biggest thing on your radar that we'll want you to think about, and I've talked, like Heath and I've talked about this a fair amount. You have a picture of this, yeah. So this is the outward bound fish hatchery. So now both the 100 run and the 100 mountain bike come through this property, the outward bound property, and that's been a great shift, but people are dumb. And they still try to drive through here, they drive too fast, they do all kinds of stupid things. And so what we've talked about is a closure here, so this is 5A, fish hatchery. So we just closed this section, right? The main traffic is going in here to park. Can you guys see around me? So they're going in here to park, right? Closed from here to the fish hatchery, that means you can get around, you can get to everywhere. You can get to the fish hatchery, you can detour around here. All we've done is take out this section where we don't have cars coming through here where they're turning in and out in this left turn. So a safety management piece to make it safer for everybody involved and to help the people who can't help themselves.
Will you give, obviously you'll give special consideration to the very few residents that live there, will they have a special hangar or something for their mirror?
You mean right here?
Yeah, I think there's 2 there.
I think this is the only one, but we can actually go and talk to them and just figure out how they wanna handle it and make sure, like, we're looking at something similar that's not on your radar for the Columbine climb, because that has become a little bit crazy too, but that's a Chaffey County thing. And just thinking about those residents and specifically outreach, so in my mind, Commissioner, I would just, like, my thought is to talk to them specifically and like, how do you wanna handle this so that it's good for you? We don't see, like, the only traffic, and I stood out there the last 2 years, a couple of hours at both events, and just really annoyed, but also like an immense amount of resources trying to hold people back from being dumb. And it feels like this is a safer way to approach it and just keep the cars out of there. Like, I don't think, the thing that none of us want is a car and athlete intersection that we all have to work through.
Yeah.
So, and this doesn't affect anybody except for maybe, like you said, 1 or 2. So that's the idea, is to go talk to them directly, but that's just on your radar of this is the ask.
Okay.
Oh, look it, I'm gonna be right on time. Same thing, that's the only thing different on the 100 run is that same thing, to do the exact same thing there. So nothing really major that you should see coming your way. Everything else should look pretty standard. Expected attendance 720, like I said, 1650 for the mountain bike. What you will see, like, we will continue to, the shuttle system, we're just gonna continue to refine. And part of this will allow us to refine that a little bit too, because we're not having traffic coming through there and they're only gonna go into outward bound, and we are gonna bring those buses down 5A. So we've just been working to refine that, make it smoother so that people use it, and so that we really, overall, the goal is decrease congestion, decrease holdups for everyone, but also that law enforcement, EMS have good access to get in and out. You have now 4 minutes, take all the time you want.
I got two questions, an easy one and a hard one. You want the easy one first? The easy one might affect me in the future, and that is the inexplicable banning of drop bars.
I don't know if we have time for that.
You don't have to.
I think we're gonna have to table that one, Commissioner.
Second question is the permit. We were talking about moving the timeline up so you're not scrambling for permits at the last minute, and then we also floated the idea of a multi-year permit. So
I'd love to float that idea back at you.
Yeah.
I'd love, like, if we got to a place where we all felt really good, one of the things I would propose, I will tell you that the permits have been in for a while. So they were in December,
Okay.
and there's like no pointing fingers, like nothing, like we're all just dealing with capacity right now.
Right.
So our goal, that's why we had an email out August 28th saying, when do you wanna meet? Because we were trying to get in front of that, and I wanna get to a place where we can actually actualize that, and it might be that we think about this year before we get there, what is our review date? And we just set it now, it's kind of where my head has gone. Because if we can get to a system where we feel really good, so where we are with the Forest Service, for line of sight, is I came back with the same thing, we want a 5-year permit with them. And I think we're gonna be in a place to do that. They wanted 2 years, they wanted to see this kind of follow through
Yeah.
a second year, and then be open to a discussion about a 5-year. And I would just float it back to you guys and say, hey, can we get to a place where we feel like a 5-year with some kind of ability to go in, hey, we need a modification here.
Right.
But it takes out some of that, doesn't mean you don't get a review.
Yeah.
It can mean we set the recap early, we set it now for, I would love to do it at the end of August. I would really love for you to get to know as close to when it happened, because I think the problem is we have so much time that some of our memory is like, well, was it this or was it that? And we wanna make sure that we are capturing what happened that year, but also things that are fresh in our mind. So we'd love to set that early. And we'd love to think about coming into next year, setting a new precedence of, is there a potential for a 5-year permitting plan that would help alleviate some resource work?
Well, I think under your leadership, it's certainly possible, so as long as you stay for the 5-year duration. Do you have any?
That
thoughts on
conversation's
that?
gonna need to get tabled.
I definitely think that's like a larger conversation, but we did receive these permits early as we requested, so we appreciate that. Yeah.
It's when you're focusing on that and you've also got, you're getting so close to the dates and you're still worrying about permits, you could have a better, smoother event if the permits were in place and you could set those aside and focus on the trash and the traffic and all that stuff.
That was definitely, that's where we'd like to be.
Probably be easier on our staff's bandwidth as well, if we would get to a point where multi-year permits feel like they make sense.
Well, I think you just, I mean, I don't know the answer, right? Like, that's really something you guys have to think about, but one of the things I offer is how do we get creative? Like, how do we think about where there's structure in there to support something that needs to be changed or addressed, but still allows for some.
Yeah, because every year our resources are gonna be a little different, so we have to adjust it, but to have that basic permit in place, it makes sense.
And I think we all have to get creative about a lot of things, right?
Because depending on staff turnover in your department, also turnover up here in the city, a lot of things could work against you.
Well, or does that mean that we do get more creative as a county in terms of, is that the thing that you, like, what is the thing that we need the BOCC really, what do you need your attention on when you first come into office, right? Because that's always gonna be a January thing. So just interesting timing considerations across the board. If that wasn't the first thing you were tackling, then, I don't know. Anyway,
One of them.
do you have any other questions? Because you have 36 seconds. No, you have 12. Do you have 7?
So you're not gonna answer me about the drop bars.
I got
Keegan-
tabled. The county
Keegan is
manager
not gonna
tabled it.
be happy about that.
Who's not?
Keegan,
Oh, he's fine with it.
he is?
Yep.
Okay, you ran it by him.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I went to the pros too. Personally, it's about safety. It's about safety in the sense that while there's the handful of humans who can handle it, there's the many that can't. And what we do see with this is it's a bucket list item, which means it's drawing humans who don't all have the same skill set.
Exactly.
And we've got to then be the parents, right, and make really good decisions. I'm in a conversation right now, because now somebody's like, well, I've got bike packing bars that just have these handles here, right? And it's like, nope, we're gonna be consistent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Very good. Thanks for being on time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Easier.
They should already be on there.
Oh, they're already there, okay.
They should be.
Do you need me to pull anything up from the Stewart?
What time is this next question?
Well, we need to be between two, so I'm having trouble with this clock, it's 12:30.
Ken, do you wanna just text me?
Yeah.
Yes.
5-minute, point of privilege.
Unless, what is the topic? What are we on now? Do I need to be here?
We're,
They
This
kinda
is,
have the transit.
public transit.
can we take a 3-minute break?
Yes.
We're
Thank
still
you.
waiting on some folks to show up.
No, we're all here, but we probably should just say, hey, it's gonna be a few minutes. We're gonna
Just a
take
couple minutes, we need to,
Yeah,
Bathroom and stand
get
up.
some water and stretch your legs.
Yeah, no, I
We're back from our short break and we'll now move on to item number 3 of this work session, overview and discussion for potential change to the Lake County Transit to move from a standard route to an on-call service within a fixed area. This will be led by Stuart Clark, our Facilities and Fleet Director.
Thank you. This is a multi-month project we've been working on. And we currently have had a local transit system running since November of 24. And we've had kind of a standard route that goes to the hospital, some outlying housing communities and that kind of thing. And we haven't had the ridership that we really would like to have had for the amount of money that's being spent on this. And so our contractor that runs our bus suggested that we go on more of an on-call type of a route. They've had good success in other areas like Moab and Steamboat Springs, perhaps somewhat similar to this community, where they have quite a bit more ridership with this, less of an empty bus going down the road, and they better serve their communities. And so they're pretty experienced in this, and we originally thought we would kind of open it up to the whole community, and based on their experience, they said we could overload what we currently have for transportation, one bus at a time. So they wanted to kind of open it up at a smaller amount, closer to what our fixed route was. Anyway, I'm gonna have Mike Fisher talk about that a little bit. If we could bring up the map that goes with that.
It should be just, if you scroll down to the bottom of their presentation, I think
It's the first on-call map, JPEG right there.
Yes, right there. Anyway, I would let him talk about this a little bit more, and then we've got a couple of slides too that he could, a little bit of supporting data that we could talk about. I want to put a plug in for our contractor, Downtowner. They've been wonderful to work with, very responsive, they have good ideas. And when there's any type of problem with the system or people, they've let us know right away. We've been really impressed with their service. But Mr. Fisher, would you like to walk us through this just a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. Just quickly, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to talk today and kind of discuss some of the proposed changes. So yeah, we've been operating the fixed route since about November of 24, and unfortunately, the ridership just isn't, where we would like to be. So we've kind of proposed this service area, which isn't much different than the gated route services we provide. However, it all just kind of function a little bit differently. There's currently this bus route that hits the Lake Fork and Mountain View, Mountain Village communities, and then runs through town. It kind of runs on an hour and a half, hour 45-minute frequency. That's kind of currently how it operates. And there's opportunity to call to request deviations. Instead, the route would function basically as passengers request a pickup and a drop off location. We would pick them up and drop them off at the locations requested or something close to it, depending on the condition of the streets. Can we put a vehicle in there? And there's a few different reasons why we'd like to do this. We think it would increase the accessibility to passengers. One thing we've heard from passengers who don't ride the current fixed route very frequently is we just don't go to or get them close enough to the destinations they want to get to. It also just, sometimes doesn't really fit into their schedule. Whereas instead of having to, plan around this hour and 45-minute frequency, the on-demand nature of the changes we're trying to make would allow passengers to look up a wait time. A vehicle would come directly to them and take them directly to their drop-off location. So we think it increase efficiency because right now we're only doing about 1.6 passengers per hour. And I just think, with the community and the needs we have out there, I think we can do more than that. And then there's kind of like the environmental and cost piece of going on demand, which, right now that vehicle is running nonstop, kind of all day. We do have a lunch break midday, but the vehicle does run empty quite a bit. So we're talking gas being burnt, wear and tear on parts, the environmental piece of it, just the carbon emissions, things like that. So there's quite a few different reasons why we're suggesting to go on demand, and I think it's not a bad thing to pilot or test out because if for some reason we're not happy with the results we see, we are able to just revert back to the fixed route. But at the end of the day, we do think that the on-demand version of this service would just yield higher ridership and make it easier for passengers.
Candace, can you pull up the presentation? Mike, we're going to pull up the slides with the steamboat case study as well as some of the other data that you had presented to us. Just to give you opportunity to run through that, and we can run the slides for you and share screen on our end. That works.
Yeah, so those of us familiar with Steamboat Springs, Steamboat Springs had a fixed route service they were providing. It was a Steamboat Yellow Zone that kind of ran from the Hilltop neighborhood through their downtown core and then out to the CMC campus, as well as the Stockbridge Transit Center. For years, the ridership on that fixed route was historically low. And they hired us, I want to say back in 2021, to basically take their fixed route and do what we're proposing we do in Leadville. Change the service to an on-demand service. And our clients out there in Steamboat Springs, Jonathan Flint, he's the director of SST. He really kind of sings the praises of the change. We've seen higher ridership, better usability. Passengers enjoy the service more as it is kind of a more convenient service. There's also, they're not having to maintain vehicles as much because that vehicle isn't constantly, running circles. Basically, the vehicle is more or less only moving if it has something to do, which again saves on those fuel costs. Are you able to kind of click through some of the slides? I'm just seeing the first page here.
Yeah, I just need you to tell me to.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. So yeah, this is kind of what we went over. The challenge was the yellow route was underperforming and losing ridership. We changed it to this on demand. You can kind of see, that lower image is the old yellow route, and then the shaded in map above it is the service area we currently operate. And ridership's grown about 26% in the first 2 years. So I think that's a promising number. I would like to see more than 26% over what we're doing in Leadville. But it's a pretty similar comparison. If you look at the current route we're running in Leadville, we did something similar where we just kind of spread the zone out to encompass most of the residential and commercial areas that are around that zone. However, instead of having to walk from the designated stops, we can get people a little bit closer, which is definitely, Not really this winter, but other winters, it's super helpful when you don't have to, go stomping 4 or 5 blocks through the snow to get to whatever office you're trying to get to. If you'd like
So
to go to the next slide. Oh, I'm sorry.
in this slide, the upper area is the on-call zone, and the lower area is this yellow route that was underperforming. Am I seeing that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. It looks like they expanded it pretty significantly, the amount of area that you could get a bus, that you could get public transportation in as on-call compared to what their route was. Do you have any sense on how much of the increase was due to expanding the area versus the change in the service model?
So it's more or less the same footprint. We're not going any further out the highway or any deeper into the neighborhood. That overlay is it's more or less almost the same exact area. Now the amount of places we will or will not go is increased because obviously you can pick any point inside that zone, but it's not like it's a bigger square mileage footprint.
It's a really good question though, Commissioner Andy, because that's what it looks like.
I think it's the zoom and the ratio on the actual map itself. It just looks like it's
Definitely, and that's why we try to kind of start as close as possible. We don't want to overwhelm the system right off the bat, which is why we're kind of the current deviated route zone we're providing. It goes about 3/4 miles off of the fixed route. And we're not really going much further than that with the on-demand map that we've proposed. It really just kind of, instead of stopping about halfway through or 3/4 of the way through some of the neighborhoods, it really just encompasses the whole neighborhood.
I don't know if this is a question to ask yet, because it might be something you'd cover, but if we were to shift to an on-call system, what does that look like for minors who are like, the kids under 18 who are, like teenagers who want to get up into town and hit the candy store or whatever, like say there's a 14-year-old who's like, hey, come pick me up. How does that even work legally? And
Yeah, they would just request the ride as anyone else would request the ride. It's public transit, so we really don't, set up any barriers unless certain clients ask for that. We do have some operations that request that, we do a little bit of age verification. No one under the age of 12 is allowed to ride unsupervised. So we're happy to have that conversation. But we don't really set any sort of barriers as far as, how old passengers must be to use the service. We found it to be very helpful. So just to kind of bounce back over to Steamboat, a majority of the ridership on the old yellow line was the local high school students. They have an open campus and they're allowed to leave for lunch. So the passengers that were riding the old yellow line, they were usually using it to get to school, to lunch during their lunch hour, and then home from school in the afternoons, or most importantly, to after school activities. And since we've transitioned to the yellow zone on demand model, we're still seeing that. Quite a bit of our ridership over there is the local high school. It's been really helpful for students that need to make it to AP courses, where the previous fixed route didn't really fit into the schedule as far as them getting out of one class and then having to get across town to their AP classes. They can just request a ride and get over to their AP classes, no problem. So we personally, as a service provider, we don't really set major benchmarks outside of certain things around, we can't have unaccompanied toddlers in the vehicle. If the children are under the age of, call it 10 years old, we do want a parent to be with them. However, it has been extremely helpful for parents who, let's say, are stuck at work and they've got some kids that need to get to soccer practice. We're happy to help out there. All of our drivers are, they go through background check processes. We have our dash cameras in all the vehicles, so the vehicle doesn't move unless the cameras are recording. It was just brought to my attention that we were recently acquired by a company called Via Transit, and Via Transit does prefer passengers to be at least 13 years old to use the service. However, I'm sure that's something we could discuss, and if that's an issue, we could talk about it. And if we like that kind of benchmark for the age of use, we could enforce that.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Couple of more items here. One, our funding source is through CDOT. They administer our grants to pay for this. And we've included them in all of our transition meetings. We had another one this morning. So they're well aware, and our funding would not change.
Does the cost change?
No, the cost would remain the same. We also, downtown actually has a supervisor that works through the routes and with the drivers. And his name is Eric Kaiser. I've met with him a few times. He's really good at the training piece and staying on top of any little issues that we potentially could have. But I've ridden this bus because it's part of my responsibility. And the times that I have ridden that, it's been empty except for me. So we're hoping that, and there's peak hours that are better right now. And I'm usually right early in the morning, but we're hoping to fix some of that. Now, the reason why this is an informative piece for the Board of County Commissioners, and I wish Commissioner Elson was here too, is because we want to make this change. We can always go back, but in case there is some kind of, we want to blindside the commissioners with, anything like a question that you might have if we made the change or that kind of thing. So we want you to be well aware of what we're planning on doing. And certainly your input is, we encourage your input so we can make changes if we need to.
I just have the same issue that I've had since the beginning was the cutoff on Leadville North. And there's entire neighborhoods down there that are full of kids, full of high school age, that just aren't being served by this at all. And it stops pretty much right at, Eagle's Nest essentially. And you got Lodestone, you got Four Seasons, Spring Circle, you've got Silver Hills. And there's a good chunk of houses down there. I mean, there's a lot of people living down there and this does absolutely nothing for them. So that's just one of my.
And there's not a great way to walk from those lower neighborhoods up to where you can get to the bus. Because there's no sidewalk.
It's sketchy. People are flying down there. It's so like those kids are stuck in those neighborhoods. They can't really, unless they're gonna start trespassing through the woods and stuff to go up into town, they're locked out there.
Yeah, I do think we had a conversation about broadening the route in the early discussions about making this transition, and sort of looking at the costs in terms of expanding and how much it would cost to expand versus it's a new model that we don't necessarily know has been ground truth in our community yet, that we kind of fell back to the idea of we can always change back if we keep it along that fixed route, but it's also easy to expand our on-call service if we find, hey, this is actually really working well for the community.
Yeah.
We can broaden it different parts of those neighborhoods.
If there's wear and tear on the vehicle that's being reduced, less engine time, and we're saving money on fuel costs and other avenues, tires, whatever, maintenance, then maybe that would, give an easier green light to getting out down Mountain View or even County Road 4 a little bit to some of those neighborhoods. Like, it just, there's just no access there.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead, Commissioner Mann.
will the vehicles stay the same, or will you try and find some smaller vehicles since they're serving so few people? Those are
Grant funded.
those are grant
The
funded.
vehicles come with the.
Currently we have through grant funding, a capital funding grant, a federal grant, we bought 2 Ford F-550 transit vans.
Yeah.
And we just have one that's a backup. And the other one is always running. And if we didn't have that backup, we'd be in trouble already.
Yeah.
We've had to take one of our buses to the dealership in Colorado Colorado Springs, that kind of thing. We've had broken out window, with a van sitting, so we needed that backup van. But,
Is that like a vandalism incident?
we did have, yeah, and we don't know, we looked on the cameras, we didn't know who it was. I don't know how to prevent it, we don't have a fenced in area to keep them, but it happened one time, but I just wanted to bring that up, and it happened to be the one window that was different than the rest.
Oh,
It was the one with the head sign on it, but anyhow, originally that was my thoughts, Commissioner Andy, that we would serve the entire community. And it was downtowner that brought it to our attention that if we moved too fast, we could overload it and then actually disserve our community by making everything so much slower. So they said to just take small increments at a time. So your observation is perfect. We may actually even get there with what we have, but we just need to take it slow to find that information out.
Yeah.
Is there somebody in town that has a cab service? And is this gonna be stepping on that person's toes? Is there
Used to
cash
be.
cab
I
or?
don't think so anymore.
There's not a cab, but there is, it's either Uber or what's the other one? Lyft. It's one of the two, but it's part-time here.
Okay.
It's not
Yeah,
all the
there's like
time.
one driver.
There's one, we've looked for that in the past for relatives visiting things.
This essentially kind of serves that need, and you want to pass it back to Mike just to kind of explain their app just a little bit. And it can kind of talk through like how someone would order a ride both through the app and then as well as a phone number, recognizing that not everyone may have the same smartphone capability. So, Mike, can we pass it back to you at this point?
Definitely, and I just wanted to quickly touch on the commissioner's question about, the availability in those other neighborhoods. I just want to point out that the on-demand model, it's much easier for us to be more flexible as far as where we do and don't serve. I'm not talking about completely rearranging routes and stop times. It's more so just adjusting maps and where we do and don't go. So I think as we gather data, it'll be really easy to possibly include some of those neighborhoods you mentioned. And then outside of that, there's a few different ways passengers can request rides. So primarily passengers request using an app on their smartphone. It's really easy to use. It's just where are you? Where are you going? How many passengers do you have? And do you need like a wheelchair accessible vehicle? So all of the ADA, considering both of the vehicles have wheelchair lifts in them, it's really not that much of an issue. But you can request using an app on a smartphone. It gives you an estimated time of arrival before you request your ride, so you know about how long to expect to wait. Once a driver accepts your ride, you are able to track them on that app as far as where they are and the progress they're making. The platform does come in both English and Spanish. And then for those of us that do not have a smartphone and would prefer to just call in a ride, you can call from any phone number. We usually set up a call center that will dispatch rides for us. You give them a call and it kind of works the same way. Where are you? Where are you heading? How many passengers do you have? And then they'll give the passenger a wait time. Those passengers can call back to check in on the status of their ride if we're taking a little longer than expected. And then the call center does provide services in both English and Spanish as well.
Are you gonna have posted hours, Michael?
We can advertise our hours on both, I'm sorry, Michael Me or Michael Irwin.
Oh.
Mike Fisher, Mike.
Mike Fisher, yeah.
No problem.
How late are you gonna go, I guess, is the question.
We would more or less operate the same hours, is my understanding. I believe we've got a break right in the middle of the day, so we would keep that lunch break for the drivers. It just kind of makes it easier for them to not have to mitigate rides and take their lunch. But we would run more or less the same hours. And that would all be advertised on the smartphone app, and then the call center employees have that information as well.
Yeah, so we're unaware of an actual taxi cab company. There's one part-time, either Lyft or Uber. But yeah, we've tried to think this through, had a number of meetings to make sure that we're not making a mistake.
Yeah. Well, if that opens the door for an easier transition to some minor expansions, that's something I would be really interested in getting on the table.
Yeah, I think that's definitely on the radar. We wanted to work within the context of the current budget, and recognizing we don't have a lot of data on how this model would work within the community. And so part of it is we need to pilot it to ensure that it's gonna work the way it did in Steamboat to see that increase. But if we're still seeing like, we're only seeing 1 to 2 riders on that route, each hour, hour 45, then we might have to have different conversations about the route itself. But realistically, this would help us create some data, determine whether we are in fact increasing ridership, getting people closer to where they need to go, getting more people downtown at good times for them to shop and do all the things we need to down here.
Do we have a number on cost per rider? I mean, I know this is grant dollars we're working with, so it's not like, for now, at least, it's not coming directly out of our community's tax paying pockets. Mostly. It would be really nice to know if we could get a cost per rider number, and then that could be like what we'd try to bring down by increasing ridership and.
That's a great question, Commissioner Andy. And they send us reports of the total ridership every month, and then it goes a continual spreadsheet for the entire year, so we certainly could give that to you if you would like. We've looked at that in the past.
Cool.
We have that number, I just don't have it in front of me. I apologize.
Okay, no worries, Mike, thanks.
Yeah, and as a baseline, looking at cost per rider as well as, I think, looking at just overall ridership is kind of how we've been viewing it is, we're paying for the service for the community is one of the reasons people are not using it because it's not convenient at the times they need to get where they need to go. So the hope is that this, having seen some of the data from other communities, that we may have the opportunity to serve more people in the long run.
I think just because it is grant funded and we know that there are less and less grants available and a lot more competition for them, it's gonna be really hard to prove we have a real need for additional grant funding if no one is writing it. So at this rate, we have gotta try some different things to get ridership up, or there won't be a real reason to fund it anymore.
Put butts in seats. Get them on the bus. Bring it out to Leadville North, bring a bunch of kids who wanna go to the library all the time.
I would ride it if it was convenient.
Right, me too, yeah. There's not a lot of people in this room, and there's 2 people here who love to see that bus come.
I would just an observation, but like with the current, we did set up the deviated route where you can call and have them come up to half a mile off of that. But Stuart was saying like, people don't do that very much. And I think if that was the whole setup, like I personally would feel a little weird about being like, hey, bring the bus to me especially. But if that's just how it works, then that's a whole different thing, and I bet a lot more people would use it, and it would be a lot more convenient. Because like, there is a lot of people within the current like deviated route, but if people are just uncomfortable with that, then like I would be more comfortable with this, just because that's how everybody's doing it, as opposed to like, like drop everything and come pick me up at my house. Just a thought.
Mike online, did he still have more?
No, the only other thing I want, maybe you could speak to, Mike, because we talked about this in some earlier conversations, and I had initial concerns about how we get the word out to the community in terms of, okay, this change is coming, it's coming at this, we're gonna target this, because we really like to try to get this in place before we get busy for the summer, and so that people visiting can use this as well. And so we talked a little bit about signage on buses, getting messaging out there. So Mike, if you have any overall background on how you made that transition in other communities and recommended communication strategies as well, commissioners, if you have any suggestions for where you'd want to see this messaging as we're making this transition.
Maybe the Summit Stage. I mean, I imagine a lot of people are taking the Summit Stage and getting here and having to walk or wait for another bus.
Yeah.
I think a good place to focus.
Commissioner Bolt, Matt, that's actually a great question. Our service times don't match very well with some of the stage, except for the middle of the day stuff, but most of their passengers in the morning and the evening, and we haven't started yet. And we're done. I wish we had a longer service there, but it just requires some more funds to make that work.
These have bike racks on them, right?
These buses, no.
No. Just wondering about, as far as boosting ridership, if there was a recreational component to it that could get people to certain points on the mineral belt that are way high up on the east side, maybe like a Saturday thing or something. Hey, we'll drop you off way up County Road 2, then you got 6.5 miles you can ride downhill back to Stringtown on the mineral belt, and it would be like I would probably be doing it on a skateboard because it's super fun, but that would be a fun, just a cool perk, like the mineral belt lap or whatever.
Yeah, those are great. I came from a company where we had bike racks and ski racks on the buses, and they're pretty expensive. I think a two bike rack is in the $3,000 range, and a 3 bike racks in the $4,000.
Maybe that would be more of a goal bus thing,
Yeah,
like a rec department.
I don't know who remembers Blaze the Belt, the old longboard races on the mineral belt, but we used to shuttle cars all day long up and down County Road 2 to Stringtown. Good times, just a thought.
Good questions though, commissioners.
I think as far as promotion, I think it would be huge if we talked to the race series and other big events, because what I see all the time and this is just anecdotal, but visitors on Facebook or whatever, people come to town and they're like, I need an Uber, I can't, how do you get to wherever? And we're just well, you can stand there for an hour and a half and wait for the bus, it's free, or walk.
Yeah.
Like that, but it's not residents so much, but there's, obviously we have a lot of people coming in at certain times, and they'd be an easy target for just saying, hey, you can call a bus and get around town, and that would be, go up to the train depot or whatever you're planning to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, can I pass it back to you? Just, how do we ensure, basically the question is, how do we ensure people aren't standing out at a bus stop in the cold waiting for a ride before we make this transition?
Yeah, so there's a few different avenues we can go. I always like to start with the most low cost, which we already mentioned, is just kind of putting up signage inside the vehicle. That would allow our current ridership to know exactly what's going on. Next step that I think would also be low cost would be putting up some sort of signage at our current stops. Now we don't necessarily have permanent fixed stops. I have kind of been running around town putting up flyers on the sides of utility boxes or some of the information boards, things like that. I'm not sure if the county or the city has any partnerships, and I'm blanking on the name, but the newspaper in Leadville, we usually kind of do a quarter page or half page, once a week, as far as, hey, these are some changes we're proposing. And then another thing as well, we've done direct mailers in the past, and we found that those are the most successful. However, those are the most expensive. That being said, the population density in Leadville isn't as high as some of the other areas that we've done those direct mailers. So I think the cost could be something palatable to get, information directly into every person's mailbox inside that shaded in zone. And then depending on who is doing utilities, for instance, we did this in Jackson, Wyoming, which is a much different use case than you guys, which is why we didn't bring it up. Just more dense, bigger area. That being said, their local utility department allowed us to just place flyers in every single person's electric bill. So as far as marketing and this isn't something we do overnight. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into it, building out the tech, getting the message out, most importantly, to the community, and then training the drivers and switching the system over. We kind of loosely discussed maybe making some changes in May so that we can catch the summer tourism rush. But yeah, there's plenty of avenues we can go, and I think if this is the route we want to go, I think it's worth just setting aside some time to figure out, hey, how much do we want to spend? Do we want to keep it under $500 as far as printing flyers and getting them out everywhere we can? Or do we want to do something a little bit more targeted and direct, like those direct mailers we were discussing, or possibly some stuff in the newspaper?
How big of a lift is this transition? I mean, I know the outreach, there's all these different components, but the actual switch over, what's it gonna take to see this as a decision item on a regular meeting agenda?
That's a really good question, Commissioner Andy. We were hoping that we could make an operational decision and just give you the information that's informative in case there's a problem that you need to be aware of.
Yeah.
Okay, cause it doesn't cost the
We're
full
hoping
quota.
to, not, just handle some of the operational things and not have to bother you with them, but
We
especially
just didn't
something
want
like this.
people to reach out to you and be upset. We've made an operational change, you had no idea. So really, it's just more like get, a hunch about how you guys feel, but also to let you know, hey, this is where we're gonna move so we can try to get ridership up,
Yeah.
knowing that, if it's not working, we will be addressing that as we kind of pilot it.
Yeah, It's an
Otherwise, I'm
operational
afraid
thing.
I can't keep the transit going if we can't continue
Yeah.
to
fine,
show
yeah.
need to fund it.
No one's gonna give us a grant for 1.6 riders per hour. As an operational shift, it sounds like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, we were
sounds
hoping
good.
so. We didn't wanna do it, but we wanted to definitely let you know.
Yeah.
We did check, we have an operational grant that pays for the operation and pays for downtowner and repairs on the buses. And we asked if we could use some of that for advertising, and that's explicitly a no, the type of grant that we have. Just so you're aware of that piece. Anyway, it does look like a win-win. When I've ridden on the bus, this is just for your information, and I've visited with the drivers. They're doing everything they can as a driver. One of the drivers even once a week goes and helps an elderly person put his shoes on so he can get on the bus. I mean, but that's not really the purpose for, yeah, right, me too, yeah, I'm exactly the same way, I feel that way, but, to better serve our community, we need to move more people.
Yeah. Butts and seats.
Sounds good, you guys, good job. That was-
Do we have anybody online that needed to add any more?
No, in that case, Mike, I think just based on the conversation here today, and James, then Stuart and I can follow up with you, and meet sort of about next steps in terms of moving this forward and then put a date, on the calendar when we think we can go live and start working towards those communications pieces. Appreciate you guys joining us today.
Definitely.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you everyone for your time. I really appreciate you taking time to chat.
Good, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Stuart.
Commissioners, yeah. Always a pleasure.
Likewise.
Keep up the good work.
I shot you an email with a question about, well.
Let's close this out.
Okay. Do you need me here though for something or?
No,
Okay,
I'll catch up with you later.
thanks.
Thank you all, that concludes our work session, on, at 1:12 PM.
Alright. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, staff.
Thank you, staff.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks for coming, Pete. Sure.